Good evening. I'm going to call this meeting to order. Cherry, if you would do roll call for us.
Erica Connor.
Here.
Paul Frederick.
Here.
Dale Porter.
Here.
Mark Schneider.
Here.
Peter Schwartz.
Here.
Carolyn Simons.
Here.
Craig Wirtz.
Here.
Waddle.
Here.
Jerry Winchowski here. Diego. I didn't hear right name. Okay. Madeline.
Okay, this is an open meeting and it has been publicly noted as such. If you would join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. And if you would join me for a moment of silence. Okay, do we have any citizens' comments for tonight?
No, we did not.
All right, then we will jump right into our presentations.
So tonight, I think we'll start with the Big Bend Math Olympiad team because if you recall, they came to present in January, and because of the expulsion hearing that spilled over into the start time for the school board, they weren't able to present. So we're really thankful that they came back. We'll start with Sean Waller, the principal at Big Bend, and then he'll introduce the team.
Thank you for having us here tonight. I probably would like to introduce at this time Trisha Dahl. She's our advanced learning program teacher at Big Bend Elementary School and also Clarendon. And we have AJ Johnson, student at Big Bend, sixth grader, and Lauren Vanderkoy, also in the blue shirt there.
Sean, can you check to make sure that's on?
Testing.
Oh, there we go.
You got to start over now, Sean.
All right, I'd like to introduce our wonderful team at Big Bend Elementary School. So we have Trisha Dahl, our ALP teacher, who is also sharing time at Clarendon, AJ Johnson, and Lauren Vanderkoy, two of our sixth graders at Big Bend. Yeah, let's give them a round. So I'm going to challenge our board just to look up something. If you have a laptop in front of you or a Chromebook, look up what pi is. We just had Pi Day, okay? And I can tell you, from my days, and I had some math classes back in the day, but I can tell you I can repeat 5 decimal points, 3.14159. AJ, I'm going to turn it over to you. What are the rest of the digits?
3.1415, 926, 535, 897, 932, 384, 626, 433, 832, 795, 028, 841, 971, 693, 993, 751, 058, 209, 749, 445, 923, 078, 164, 062, 862, 089, 986, 280, 348, 253, 421, 170, 679, 821, 480, 865, 132, 823, 066, 470.
One more digit and you'd have been showing us up. So we're going to stop right there.
Wow. Wow.
That's pretty impressive. All right, I'm going to turn things over to Trisha Dahl.
And that's sometimes when I question if I'm smart enough for my job because I work with kids like this. So as he said, my name is Trisha Dahl. I'm the ALP teacher here and at Clarendon. And for the previous 4 years, I was at section in Eagleville doing the same job. And then I've got AJ and Lauren, and I'm going to let them tell you a little bit about themselves and who they are and why they're in the program that I'm lucky enough to teach, and what they love about the program of Math Olympiad.
Hello, I am AJ Johnson. I'm in 6th grade, and I've been in Math Olympiad, or the ALP program, since 3rd grade, and right now I go to the middle school for 8th grade pre-algebra.
Wow. Wow.
What I love about Math Olympiad is that it's a real challenge for me, and it's just generally fun. It makes it challenging for me is that it takes a lot of patience, but I'm not really good at waiting and solving stuff that takes a long time, so Yeah.
Awesome.
Hi, I'm Lauren Vandertoy. I'm a sixth grader at Big Bend. I've been in Math Olympiad since fourth grade, and I also am in eighth grade math, so pre-algebra. I love Math Olympiad because I get to do logic puzzles, which is something I don't get to do in normal math class in normal parts of school. Math Olympiad is also challenging because since it's a contest and I'm really competitive, I like being able to do something academically competitive, and it helps me in other areas of school.
So what is Math Olympiad? Math Olympiad is a program that we run at all 6 of the elementary schools, and it's a worldwide competition. There's a slideshow up on the screen if you wanted to look. There's more than 120,000 students from 40 different countries that compete in this program. It is a paid program that each school pays for us to participate in. And for the kids, I'm not going to read through all of them because you can read, but the kids who are invited to be a part of it really get enthusiastic, and they're super excited. At Big Bend, it's Tuesday afternoons. They come to me at the end of the day, and we meet in the art room because I have an office, not a classroom. And I have almost 30 kids that are in Math Olympiad. So we meet in the art room, and sometimes they're there before me because they're excited and they're done with their work in class. And it's either, is it a competition day, or do we get to play Math 24? Or there's all sorts of different options of things that we do, and they just love it. We invite all Math Accelerated students from 4th through 6th grade. So at Big Bend, I believe that's 7, if I'm thinking off the top of my head correctly, 7 students right now who are Math Accelerated that are invited to be part of it. Then we also look at their FAST test scores, which they take between 3 to 5 times a year. So the kids with the higher scores participate. And then we also have a chance for teacher recommendation because some kids just don't test well. They sit in front of a screen to do FAST test, and it's not the right testing for them. So teacher recommendation is taken into consideration as well. And I went out of order, and we already talked about what the students think. So on contest days, they typically come to me at 2:55. We'll have the test start at 3 o'clock, and they get exactly 30 minutes to complete the test. So at 30 minutes, a timer goes off, and I take their papers away from them. Most of them finish between 20 to 25 minutes. And then the following week, we meet and we go over the answers, and they get a chance to talk with their teammates, so to speak, about how they solved problems, give some tips and tricks on what they did for kids who didn't get the right answer. And then I did not do this at my previous 4 buildings, but when I came into this building, I was told, well, Mrs. Kimenow got us full-size candy bars if we got a 5 out of 5, because there's 5 questions on the test. So I have now started giving full-size candy bars if they get a 5 out of 5. This past week, Lauren or AJ, one of them was like, did we get our candy bars yet? I was like, okay, I'll go to the gas station. And I stopped in the office, and I was like, who wants a candy bar? And walked over to the gas station. So they get their candy if they get a 5 out of 5. And it's a hard test. So from all 5 tests that they took this year, there was 4 5 out of 5s total of all the kids. And both of these are 2 of the kids who were able to get it, and then there was 2 5th graders. This is just a few examples of what the kids' work looks like when they complete a test. So it's a lot of work that they put into these 5 questions in 30 minutes. Here's another set. Different kids do it different ways. And this is 4th, 5th, and 6th graders that are able to participate in this.
Do the different age levels have different tests, or are they all given one?
They all get the exact same test.
Cool.
There's an elementary test and there's a middle school test. I don't know if the middle school participates in this or not, if they're able to give that one, but all the elementary schools do. And so we figured if we were going to present to you about these Math Olympiad problems, that it would be a really good idea for you guys to see what some of these look like. So you can pass them out, guys. I have put on there an easy problem, a medium problem, and a hard problem based off of our tests.
What was the AI page?
When Sean said, "Look up pi," Art yelled, "Elegant farmer." I heard him.
Yes.
17, 47.
And no. I'll just give you I don't know, a minute.
Are you setting a time limit?
I mean, I would say you could have 5 minutes to do 3, but I don't want to use all of our time. I don't want to abuse it. AJ set you a 1-minute timer.
Oh.
For those of you in the audience, here's the questions. Oh.
That was close.
Diego and Madeline were hopeless.
I haven't looked at these since I did this in elementary school.
AJ says your time is up. Did any of you complete any of the problems?
I got one.
Oh, all right. Who completed an easy problem? All right, what did you get?
14.
What'd you get?
7.
Tom, did you get one? He got it.
Oh, the finance guy.
He did. Oh, I can't give him all the answers. You better get it. I mean, his kid was one of my kids at section 2. All right, medium problem. Anybody complete that one? I am so proud of you.
Baby steps.
Did anybody complete the hard one? That one takes a little bit more time. I would be super impressed if you did.
Don't tell us I want to work on it at home.
Well, then close your eyes.
13.
So Tom was right with 13 for the first answer. The medium problem was 314, and the hard problem, you can look at the screen so that Erica can try this at home.
How do you know if you get it right? I just wrote down the answer.
And it's in the agenda. You could click on it.
I did get 314.
Do you guys have any questions about the Math Olympiad program itself or anything ALP related?
I have a little girl at Big Bend who is very excited to be in Math Olympiad. So you guys should be very excited that you've got kids that look up to you.
It's true.
Tom, I
She
need to
is
explain to me.
super
how you got
excited.
13.
Make a Venn diagram, dude.
It's that simple.
That's simple.
All right. Thank you guys very much for your time tonight.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you,
Good job,
guys.
Thank you
Nice
for
job.
being here, you guys. Okay, we will go to student rep report next.
Thank you.
All right, so at Eagleville this month, kindergarten students started their science unit on outer space, and students got the chance to explore different aspects of outer space through play centers and the last few weeks have been perfect weather for maple syrup tapping, so students have learned all about how tapping maple trees works and got to see a tap being put in, sample syrup and sap, and have been collecting the sap all month to boil and turn into syrup themselves. Students are going to sell the syrup at their Maker Fair on April 22nd. Eagleville staff, students, and families have been celebrating March being Reading Month. This year, students and staff were challenged to keep their reading streak going the whole month, and families were sharing pictures of their reading. Any students who kept their streak going the whole month will be able to participate in a donut party. And then this month, some of our PBIS winners won the opportunity to make paper airplanes and have a paper airplane contest. Everyone had a ton of fun designing and testing out their airplanes.
All right. What did you say? Cool. Sorry, I'm trying to figure out a name. Congratulations to Charlie Cool.
Keel.
Keel. Thank you.
Keel, yep.
Thank you. There we go. That's what I was going to go with. A first grade teacher at section who was recognized by the Mukwonago Rotary as the March Teacher of the Month. On the morning of March 17th, which was St. Patrick's Day, the section PTG hosted a Pancake Pals breakfast. This breakfast event was a huge success with 445 students, parents, and grandparents enjoying breakfast at section. Even Hockey, the school mascot, made an appearance at the event. Families had the opportunity to shop at the book fair following the breakfast. On the afternoon of Friday, March 10th, the section PBIS committee held a Trimester 3 kickoff assembly. The Hawks of the Month from Trimester 2 were recognized and had the opportunity to compete with teachers in minute-to-win-it games. The PBIS team then introduced the Trimester 3 award and the characteristics staff would be looking for this trimester when nominating students for the Hawk of the Month.
So as we had last month, we had those amazing singers come in. So this month, the 4 MASD singers, Adele, Raina, Nathan, and Caden, represented the district with the National Honors Choir, the American Choral Directors Association convention in Cincinnati, Ohio. Students were told that 300 students who had also auditioned for their voice part got voice parts in the choir, and only 75 were chosen. So congratulations again to them. Congratulations to all of the MHS music students who competed at District Solo Ensemble on March 4th at Greendale High School. This year, MHS sent 79 different events that included 129 students, and in May, 87 of these amazing students will be representing MHS at the state level. To work on presenting skills, SOAR students led and assisted in creating an assignment for Women's History Month. The research led to many different open discussions on social injustice and plenty of different learning. SOAR students are also continuing to work on life skills by learning how to plan and prepare for grocery meals, and so students decided Dollar General was the best for what they needed. They walked over to the Dollar General store, and students learned to use a prepaid Visa card and how to ask for assistance when they had difficulties at self-checkout. They also learned what to do when their card gets declined. That actually sounds really informational. I could use that. Yeah. SOAR students have learned to write postcards in proper letter form from their pen pals at Linden Grove. And from hearing of World War II stories from a veteran to playing sheep's head with residents, SOAR has had a great adventure at Linden Grove. For the first time in 19 years, Mukwonago's robotics team are regional champions. The team was awarded the championship alongside an award that celebrates the machine's robustness and will compete later at the World Championship in Houston. So congratulations and good luck to all of them.
Rolling Hills celebrated Parent Lunch Week along with a scholastic book fair made possible by the support and organization of its amazing PTO. Parents were able to join their children for lunch and enjoy sandwiches from Foltz Family Market and MP Taqueria out of Eagle. It was an amazing week with 541 parents in attendance. 3rd and 4th grade students had their music concert on March 7th with over 400 people in attendance at the nighttime performance. Students did a tremendous job. 4th grade students will be participating in Immigration Day on March 22nd and then go syruping at Camp Edwards on March 24th. Special thanks in advance to Mr. McNulty and Mrs. Blue for assisting Dr. Schlicht as immigration officers for this event. The students will be learning a lot about what it was like to be an immigrant coming to America and will be able to enjoy a huge buffet of ethnic foods from around the world. The Rolling Hills PTO sponsored a family movie night to celebrate March Madness and showed Space Jam on Friday, March 17th, St. Patrick's Day.
The 7th grade Parkview students have been using thinking tasks to start their lessons. They're usually the most rigorous problems of the lesson are completed on whiteboards by teams of students. PVMS would like to thank the Mukwonago Ed Foundation for the purchase of these vertical whiteboards. Last week, Parkview held their 3rd Peek Inside Parkview of the year, offering PVMS parents the opportunity to see students learning in action and hear from staff about current programs. And then PVMS was recognized as this year's Wisconsin Association of School Council's Spirit of Excellence Award winner and will be recognized at a Milwaukee Bucks game in April. This award is given to one middle school in the state for achieving excellence in student leadership, sportsmanship, and service to their school and communities. And there's a copy of the submitted application materials for those who are interested. So congratulations to them.
And lastly, we have Clarendon. The Lions Club held its annual Easter egg hunt poster contest, and members were here today. Well, it says today, but we don't know when that was, to recognize the top winners. Great job to everyone. Clarendon is extremely excited to award scholarships to Clarendon alumni who are graduating this June. Better Together Breakfast was a huge success. They would like to thank all the families who came out and spent a Saturday morning with them. And lastly, Clarendon students celebrated Read Across America Day by reading with their buddies. Read Across America Day is a day where people around the nation come together to read books and celebrate the joy of reading. A fun fact from Mrs. Gregg. Clarendon students have checked out 12,608 books since the first day of school. That's about it.
All right. Do we want to go to our strategic plan?
Yes. Yeah, we'll have the updates from the strategic plan on mental health and on staff retention. And Christine's going to go first.
I enjoy doing that.
All right, can you guys hear me okay?
I want them to know that
And I'm not at karaoke or anything. All right. So this first slide is just a reminder about what our strategic plan is in the area of mental health. Just that we are working on creating a system of comprehensive supports to help our students learn and grow in a social and emotional healthy way. I just wanted to share today we started our first round of interviews for our new school psych position. We had a retirement this year. And when we asked the question, why do you want to come work here in Mukwonago School District? The number one answer is that we appreciate that when we look at your website and when we talk to people in your district, that your school and your school board focuses on mental health. So I think that is a huge compliment and something we should all be really grateful and glad to hear. So I'm going to walk you through the strategic plan kind of in a tiered approach so that you can see the different areas. I'm going to be as inclusive as possible tonight, but I know that there are some things I won't be able to get to, but we'll bring them back at a later date, like an update on SOAR and the JITO program. That being said, I just want to start off with Tier 1. We'll be talking about the counseling lessons that we have in our classrooms, the opportunities we've had for community education, some professional development we've offered on mental health, and then our PBIS systems of support inside of our schools K-12. Then I'll start talking about our early intervention pieces, which has our small groups, our mentoring, our daily check-ins, and then our behavioral RTI framework that we're working on. I'll take it then a step later into our more intensive interventions, such as our individual groups, our wraparound services, and the family therapy liaison work we've been doing with the community and the Gals Institute. And then at our top tier, we'll talk a little bit about our crisis response in both schools and in our community. All right, so this first slide is just, I asked the counselors to put together just a framework for me of how often they are meeting with students. And so for our elementary students and middle school and high school students, our elementary students, they have weekly check-in meetings. Our elementary counselors see about 128 students in addition to the students that they see every day in classes when they're teaching. They also see small groups, I should say individual check-ins. They also do check-ins every 2 weeks. Our community education Tier 1, we've continued to offer different partnerships through the Gals Institute. The most recent one that we did this year was tips and strategies for parents on social media. That was a very popular topic, and we had a lot of really great conversation afterwards in the lobby about what we can do collectively to help promote healthy social citizenship. We've also, Tier 1, offered and continue to offer professional development around youth mental health first aid training. So we had 2 of our school psychs get trained to become a trainer, and we have, so far this year, trained 46 additional staff members to be first aid responders for mental health. And then also during our last February PD session, we offered mental health sessions for staff on just where we are from a state, local, and then Mukwonago area school district level, what the data looks like, and then some strategies for educators in the classroom. For our behavioral work, we have continue to work with a model called Collaborative Proactive Solutions, which is a Ross Green model. That is something that focuses on student behavior, but really involving the students in the problem-solving process. We've worked with our PBIS buildings at Rolling Hills and Clarendon to put something into place called Zones of Regulation, which just gives our kids the language to describe how they're feeling. And so that has been very successful and reduced quite a few behavioral referrals in both buildings. And then we also have our PST meetings at a tier 1. So if a student or a family or a parent, teacher has a concern around a student, we are able to bring together a team just to start problem solving, to put some strategies into place. I also just put down on here for our PBIS, we collect both major and minor behavioral referrals. I'm sure you guys are familiar with the PBIS model. And so I just put a little bit of a snapshot of just the collection over time of our major behavioral referrals for our elementary schools, and then Parkview, and then the high school. I just took the 22-23 data from the high school because they've really been working on refining their system this last year. That just kind of gives you a...
What's defined as major?
So it's 3 or more minors. So if it was maybe an incident at recess, maybe, I don't know, I'm making this up, skipping in line and maybe talking too loud in the hallway, then it would count for a major referral, which means you have to go down to the office.
Do you think the spike in that 21-22 is when we required face masks and there's kids not wearing them? I'm just wondering why that 1 year has like so high and then it dipped back down because now we don't have, I mean, that, would that be considered like 3 minor things and then that would result in a major? I'm just trying to, what is the reasoning for why it's so high that 1 year?
I'm not sure,
So
but I
there,
can...
there 21, 22, there were no masks. That was last school year.
Oh,
Oh, yeah.
yeah. Why would it be so high then?
I'd have to look down into each individual school.
Now they can
Yeah, we'll be happy to
Yeah,
dig
I'd be
into
happy
that.
to bring that back
I
to
don't
you.
have an answer.
Okay.
So then talking about that early intervention piece, so I actually kind of foreshadowed this a little bit. So I did ask our counselors to take a look at their schedules and just kind of give me an idea of how many students they meet with. So in our 6 elementary buildings, our counselors meet with an additional 128 students on weekly check-ins. Our middle school sees about 50 students weekly, and then our high school counselors see about 60 students on a weekly basis. And that's in addition to all of their other responsibilities, but these are kids in particular that are being seen for a variety of different reasons. And then we also check in strategically with students every 2 weeks, so somebody might just be going through kind of a rough patch or have something, life-changing circumstance going on right now, and so on a check-in, kind of check-out basis, our elementary counselors see an additional 25 kids. Our middle school sees about 57, and then the high school fluctuates. So sometimes they'll see kids a lot around maybe like AP testing when kids are super stressed out, or around, time when they're getting into colleges or getting, acceptance letters, whatever it might be that might be something that's high stress or high anxiety for a moment. And then looking at small groups, I just wanted to take a look at what are all the topics that our counselors are working with our students on. And so those topics include things like anxiety, social skills, communication skills, so like emotional regulation, so like if they're really dysregulated, trying to get them back into a calm space, friendship skills, impulse control, kindness, sportsmanship, coping, and problem solving. That sounds like my house every night. And then in middle school, really focusing on friendship, coping, healthy relationship. And at the high school level, they talk a lot about attendance and just making sure that our kids are where they need to be, and that would be in school. So I also just wanted to point out the academic component of a comprehensive system. So if you look at you can kind of see the graph there. It's not the greatest visual, but of the 308 students right now in Tier 2 academic interventions in the district, 189 of those students are in our kindergarten to grade 3. So if you look at that graph then on the right-hand side, it talks through the process of if a teacher has a concern, either a behavioral concern or an academic concern, it'll walk you through what that process would look like for the team to come together and problem solve, and how to inform the parent, how the parent's involved in the discussion, and then what those additional check-ins look like. I just think it's a good thing for you guys to have a visual on. There is a good plan in place when our students are struggling or our teacher has a concern. So when we get to tier 2 and we start talking about our more intensive interventions, I've talked before about the GALS referral pathway, and that is that 6 to 8 sessions in school, or there's a referral out to the GALS Institute in Delafield. The benefit of having the 6 to 8 sessions in school, and I know I've mentioned this before, but I just like to reiterate it, is it's definitely a less instructional time loss if our students are seen on campus, and then our parents aren't trying to juggle getting off of work, and we're not all trying to get to the 5, 6, 7, 8 o'clock nighttime slots that are generally pretty popular. And then we also have the mental health navigator. So that is a position that is at the high school right now. And just as a reminder, that's that liaison between our school district and then our students who might go intensive outpatient or intensive inpatient. And so we have 33 students right now being seen by the mental health navigator. We also have Life Stance, which I know I've mentioned before, was formerly Cornerstone, so they also come on site. So we have 11 students being seen through Life Stance right now. And then in the past, I've talked to you guys about the Your Choice, which is the AODA class that we have offered in the past. So between 2020 and 2022, we had 18 students complete the class. And if you recall, when students used to be in violation, we would offer them the class. We pay for the class, but it was on a Saturday in Delafield, so they would have to get there. And we just were not having a great success rate with our students getting there. So this year, we brought it on campus, and our students come here, and we have had 30 students so far this year complete the class at district office. So clearly that was a barrier. We've been able to reduce the barrier, and we've had kids coming. And it's actually been, it's nice. I get to spend the morning with them. Our administrators circle in and spend time with the students too, so it's also a good opportunity to build some rapport and relationships. And then talking about that tier 2 and tier 3 academic support, so we do have positions in the district. We have the interventionists that we have had, but then we've also had the ability to add those ESSER positions over the last 3 years that have really been put in place and used to close learning gaps that had occurred during the pandemic. And so we have been really fortunate to have those positions, and I think they have a really big impact on student growth. And then one of those, the next referral or the next option for more intensive support would be a special education referral. So I do want to talk a little bit about this next slide. So it looks a little startling, but let me talk you through it. So the first little bunch of bars is the number of initial evaluations. So you can see over the course of time, those continue to grow. So in 18-19, we would have had 159 initial evaluations for special education. So when I talk about an initial evaluation, I'm not going to bore you, but it is a process. So there's a lot of paperwork involved. There's a lot of meetings and assessments involved. And so year to date right now, we're at 228. We will add at least, I would say, 30 more to that. Because we just had our second child find at Brook Life Church, where any parent in the community who has concerns about their child can bring them to Child Find. And we had a 50% referral rate from parents that brought their students. So really glad that they're getting that early intervention, but definitely is going to continue to move those numbers upward. When we look at the number of students with 504s, so a student with a 504 is a student who qualifies for an area of impairment but does not require special education. And so those numbers also continue to climb in our district. Right now we have 267 504s, and those students with 504s also have school psychologists working in those too. So There's sort of a dual role there for the school psych, and so when 2 years ago, I had asked the board to add that an additional school psych position, and this is why, because the numbers continue to climb in special education. So then that last graph looks at number of students in special education to date. So we had a pretty high, actually, in 18-19, 620, and then you can see it kind of fluctuates up and down a little bit. Year to date right now, we have 618 students with IEPs, but again, I would forecast that to increase at least by 20 to 25 students by the end of this school year. And just to kind of give you a comparison look, Mukwonago has about 11.3% of students have an IEP. And in comparison to districts around us, it's 10% in Muskego, 12.2% in Kettle Moraine, Oconomowoc is 11.5, Pewaukee is 10.4, Elmbrook is 10.4. So we are pretty in line with our neighboring school districts, but I would tell you that our neighboring school districts are struggling just as much as we are with just keeping up with the sheer number of referrals we're getting.
Christine, do
Yes.
we know how many are in district or out of open enrolled? Like the numbers?
I can get that for you.
Thank you.
Generally, again, remember during open enrollment, we try to be as thoughtful as we can. If students have siblings here or if they've been in the district for a long time, we try to keep that into consideration. But we have had to have some students return to their home districts. We try not, I mean, it's a hard thing to do, but specifically, I feel like that happens the most around our students who are our youngest, maybe going into 4K. Parents will revoke consent, get them in for kindergarten, and then re-refer them. And there we see a spike in having to ask people to go back to their home district. All right, so when we start to talk about like our top tier of support, we're really talking about our response to crisis. And so if you look at those numbers, I just want to explain a couple of different things. So our crisis action plans are something that is written as a result of a student behavior or report during the school day. And as educators, we are what is called a mandated reporter. So if we hear something that is concerning, we have to, by law, report that information to the county. And so it is not our role to judge if what happened is true or not true. Our job is to report, and then the county will do what they need to do on their end to follow up. But it is pretty significant that when you look at the graph, I have, and I'll share more of this with you in closed session, but in 1920, we had about 41 reports in total across the district K-8. In 2021, we would have had 49, so that was a slight increase, but we also had 652 kids in virtual school, so that could have impacted it. And then if you recall, 1920, we had the closure. In 21-22, we had 120 action plans, and then to date right now, we have 87. And I would imagine that we will surpass the 120 from last year. So we are continuing to work on our response. So if a student comes to us and is making comments around suicidal ideation or wanting to hurt themselves, or they are self-harming, we are working with our student services to make sure that we are doing wellness checks either at home or in partnership with our PD. And then we have also worked with the county to have crisis workers come into our schools to help our students who are really struggling.
Is there an age band with this?
K-12.
No priority, no more high school, more middle school, no? Just
No. Actually, I pulled all of that. I'll share that with you later, but it is not, it is across every single building in our school district. All right, so how has the district responded? So I've showed you this graph before, and I'm going to continue to show this to you over the course of time as just a reminder, and I'll also talk you through it, but these are all different steps that the district continues to take along with that implementation line of when things went into place. So I'm going to flip through to this next one. Again, these are all of that youth mental health first aid training that I talked about, the AODA responses, The Judo 2 program, I won't get a chance to update you on tonight, but I will have Jody Jonas from the program come and give an update to the board at a later time. So then our next steps, so in our Tier 1, we're gonna continue to talk about what does that Tier 1 intervention look like. So what do our counseling lessons look like in our classroom, being responsive. We'll continue to do that community education piece and professional development on mental health. All of our elementary buildings are in a little bit of a different spot with PBIS, so we're going to continue to go through those tiers of training to get our buildings up to where they would like to be. As far as early intervention goes, we are up for another round of grants, and Tom Karthauser loves it when I write grants because he loves managing them. And so we will be writing again for our AODA grant. So hopefully we'll get an additional $25,000 towards AODA needs. And then we will also be writing for the mental health grant, which is what helped to support adding that 5th counselor to the high school. So we will write for that again also. And then that Your Choice class that comes into the district to teach it right now is done by the Addiction Resource Council. But we have our staff, actually like the high school staff and our counseling staff would really like to be trained. And so they are going to be, through the grant money, also going through that training. They just feel like they have really great relationships with the kids, and it could be a missed opportunity to get to just spend some time. And then we'll continue to offer that youth mental health first aid training. We have to do that 3 times a year to keep our certification. And then looking at that next step, we're gonna, for next year, look to add that mental health navigator role. So we have 33 students at the high school, but we would like to see that added into the middle school. We are also doing some, it's called DITEP training, but it's drug impairment training for education professionals. So we are inviting, there's quite a few neighboring districts joining us right after school lets out to talk to us just about what we should be looking for in students, what kind of, when should be, like, what signs and symptoms should we be looking for, and how can we be responsive. And so that's done by the Department of Justice. And so we're gonna be doing that June 12th and 13th if you have nothing going on. And then we will continue to monitor our special education growth and staffing. Specifically, our early childhood and our speech and language continue to be a significant area of growth for us. And then our response in the community and in our schools, we can continue to work on that suicide risk assessment training, and that is, again, only for those really significant situations. I think it's important because I worry about the availability of our county resources. A lot of our students cannot get beds inpatient. If they really need help, they're not often able to get in, and if they are in, they're only in for a night or 2, and then they're discharged back out. And so just wanting to make sure that we can do as much as we can from a school-based perspective. And then we also have the Get Kids Ahead initiative money that I've been kind of waiting to see how we want to move forward with that. And so one of the things I've been talking to the high school about is seeing if we can put something specifically in place for AODA education support for our students and families on a regular basis. And then the other piece that we have been working through is we have, I think some of you might have been at the Screenagers community education event that we offered. That was around digital citizenship. So they have a new series called Screenagers Under the Influence that is all about THC, which is where we've seen the most significant rise in use from our students. And so that'll be a next step for us also. And that is it. Do you guys have any questions for me?
Do we know what the speech referral increase has been? And you mentioned that that's one.
Yeah, I can get the exact numbers for you, but I will tell you that in the last 3 years, really, we have added people all the way through the start of the school year, because the numbers they just keep going up.
Right.
So, and it's interesting because I don't know that we can say everything is related back to the pandemic, but it certainly is. It has to have had an impact, certainly with some of our students who couldn't read, like, our facial expressions, or just had limited interaction at home, just because they didn't go to daycare or they were virtual or whatever the reason might be. So I can get you the speech and language numbers.
I have one question, Chris. When you do the special ed evaluations, what's the percentage of a finding? Are you 1 for 1? Is it 80% are a finding? Is it 60%?
That's a great question. I would have to get you the percent, but I would say, I feel like in talking with our school psychologists, I would say it's probably about a 75%
Finding rate?
finding, yeah. And then oftentimes, if it is a finding, it doesn't necessarily mean it will be a special education needing that specially designed instruction, but they would qualify under an impairment area. And keep in mind things like anxiety, depression, ADHD, all of those are qualifying areas. All right, awesome, thanks.
So good question. So while Stephen gets set up, we're going to get you the reason for that increase in 21-22 minor violations, special education, the number of open enrollment students that are receiving special education services, the reason for the speech referral increase, and then the percentage of special education referrals that lead to services. We'll get you that.
For the speech, just not even just the reason, but what the number is. I'm just
What the
wondering,
actual increase is?
Yeah, what our pathology, how many kids they're seeing. Is there a need for more?
Okay.
Or like what we're looking at? 'Cause I just read something about that, like the huge increase that other districts are facing, and I was like, I wonder what ours are. And then you mentioned it, so.
Yeah, we'll do that.
Okay.
All right, strategic plan update as it regards retention. This is just an early update. Obviously, we're in March. There's a lot of road ahead. So it'll be interesting to see what comes as a result of the hiring season as it unfolds come midsummer and then early fall. So this is what we got as of today. But again, as to just start with our goal statement, the Mukwonago Area School District will utilize best practice to hire, retain, engage, and develop a skilled and talented workforce to serve students, the district, and the community. And so taking a look at this presentation, I don't believe that we in the past have done a March presentation on this, so I thought this would be an interesting place to start. As of March 20th, today, we've had 6 retirements, 9 resignations, and 4 mid-year departures, which is an improvement from last year, because at that time we had 19 folks that were moving on, 12 retirements, 7 resignations, and 1 mid-year departure. So again, what that looks like, what these numbers will look like come June, July, August will be something that we'll want to keep an eye on, just to see how we're doing in terms of retention. So as we did in the past, we are conducting exit interviews. Of the 15 resignations / retirements, we've gotten 4 done. As of today, we actually have 3 scheduled. In some cases, folks aren't necessarily going to be super excited to give a resignation or a retirement interview for varying reasons, which is pretty much to be expected. But we reach out to get those scheduled, and we'll be able to take a look at what the trends are from those that are taking off to a new opportunity. As of right now, the 4 big trends that we've had, a couple that are leaving education, we had a promotion in another district, relocating, and then just work-life balance. So those are some of the things that are emerging. In terms of hanging on to staff that we're keen to hang on to, there is just like we have regular interviews, we have exit interviews, we also have a thing called stay interviews, which are useful when we have staff that we do not want to even entertain leaving. There are some folks that are hard to replace, and sometimes it's good to have a preliminary conversation with, and there are some example questions that follow in terms of making the work interesting, engaging, how we can best utilize the folks that, again, we would not want them to even entertain leaving, whether they're just an outstanding employee or perhaps they have a license that would be extremely difficult to fill. So that's a conversation that's begun with the administrative council. So unfortunately, you're probably going to hear me mention this all the time, but when it comes to our local competitors for hiring purposes, we've got districts that are looking increasingly to move towards 50,000. And so one of the things I do believe that we're going to want to continue to do is once that state budget is identified, really dig in on what we're offering folks so that we're able to attract folks and get them to stick around with us. The other thing, though, that I would say is it isn't always just about money. The relationships in a school building between staff members, between leaders and teachers and support staff, all of that stuff is extremely important. We've all worked in circumstances where maybe the pay was good, but we didn't much care for the leadership or vice versa. But those relationships are absolutely critical. One thing that might be helpful as well, when folks, to maybe encourage folks to consider sticking around, is sick leave payout. That encourages people to consider, well, maybe I want to stick around because on the back end when I retire, there is some level of a payout. That did exist in the past. It's not as common now. How we would want to structure that, we'd want to be thinking about that very carefully because that can get very expensive very quick. But again, it's just for us to bring ideas to the board for consideration so we can discuss it all. We continue to have substantial needs in terms of building and grounds, food service, and special education paraprofessionals. It is historically having mid-year vacancies of this sort is not super common, but unfortunately in the last couple of years it has been more common. And so what we've got listed here is our current offerings, but also the hourly rate. Now, going around and taking a look at, when you go to the grocery store, sometimes you'll see signage and they'll talk starting rates. Our rates are pretty competitive with that. So we're gonna have to think about how we advertise our offerings, how we compensate these offerings, and to that end, we have begun those conversations, and there's more to follow on it, but lower cost insurance offerings so that we can expand offerings in that regard, but also hourly rates have to be examined. And that's something that once the state and local budgets, once the state budget is settled, we can start talking about what we're gonna do at the local level to fully staff our buildings. And so that is my March staffing update. Any questions?
No, I think we're good. And then the last presentation I see is state lawmaker conversation.
So there is none tonight?
Okay. So I'm going to move on to the consent agenda. I'm looking for approval of school board meeting minutes of February 27th, 2023, as well as the approval of voucher numbers 140701 to 140949 in the amount of 1.1 million and change in receipts for February 2023, totaling 13 million and change. Do I have any questions or comments? Hearing none, that is approved by consent. We will move into our committee updates, and we'll start with student learning.
This month, we discussed the K-6 social studies pilot. And they'll be meeting in March, they just met, and we'll complete forms from the pilots, and we'll hear about that next month. The human growth and development update, we discussed, we had been given the books to look through, so we discussed about that. More books were going to be acquired, and next, the Human Growth and Development Committee is going to meet on April 11th, and then we'll get the recommendations from them. The next thing we discussed was the 7-12 counseling pilot update, and there will be a community viewing session for the Character Strong from 5 to 7 p.m. on March 22nd, and from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. on March 23rd at the district office if people are interested in looking through those. Many of our elementary schools have a one book, one school, and it's when a school will read, all grades will read one book and they'll discuss it, and we really didn't have a process for that, and so there was a process written and that was presented to us. The 4K registration and planning for 2023, as of that day, there were 197 students registered for 4K for next year. The district office was beginning to place those. I don't know where those are at right now.
Letters went out this week, actually.
They went out this week?
Or last week. At the end of last week, our letters for placement went out.
Can I ask questions on that now, or am I just doing, I'm just doing minutes. We'll ask questions about that later. The next one was, we did take a survey, and that survey is online under student learning, about how staff felt about the 7-12 virtual learning day, and overall it was that they would recommend doing it again that way. And that's pretty much it.
I would just add as an update that the K-6 social studies teachers did come out of last week with a recommendation for a resource. So I will be doing a presentation to Student Learning Committee on that on April 6th. So if anybody is interested in hearing that entire presentation, that'll be on April 6th to then make a recommendation to come to full board at the end of April on the resource.
Thank you. And then Personnel Committee update.
Do we have an update on when you're getting those books for the?
Yes, so they actually are, they gave me an online to share, which is nice because they did not want to. I got a whole history of budgets that they get for sending us materials and how difficult that is for companies. And so she did send us the online. I thought I was going to be ready to send that out today, and she didn't send the right one for one of them. So I'm hoping to send that tomorrow, which I would send then to the entire board and the entire committee in an online form.
Perfect.
Okay, Personnel Committee.
So the Personnel Committee, we talked about the Eagleville Agreement policies, Neola policies, sub-pay rates, snow day make-up plan. The only thing we really have on the agenda, though, is the Eagleville. Sean?
So we have a couple of those items that are action items we'll be discussing in a few minutes. And then the Eagleville Charter, I just shared that with the committee and reminded them that we have a 5-year agreement with the governing board at Eagleville. And that should do it.
All right, and then Finance and Facility update.
We covered a budget history Tom went through. That was what, 20, 30 years of budget history? Yeah. It's a good story. It's kind of a sad story in the sense of how low we are on that budget scale throughout that history, but a good story in the sense of how good a job we've done with the money we've had. We went through the 23-24 budget update, the school level budget review, and we brought a letter that everybody signed already for the North Prairie Police Department for helping out with some traffic issues. And then Tom had his director's report.
Okay, then we will go ahead and move right into our action items for appointments, resignations, and retirements.
All right, for appointments, we've got Carla Moglin. She is the Title I teacher for the remainder of the year. And for resignations, we've got Anthony Pipitone at the high school, German teacher.
I'd like to make the motion we approve.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any questions or comments?
Is the German teacher at the end of the year?
Yes.
Oh, thank you.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. We have Neola policies, 3425, 4425, benefits and employment of substitutes.
Awesome. With regards to the benefits, just to summarize, basically what we're looking to do is to go with the first option with stakeholder feedback, which kind of covers the spirit of option 2. This is in parallel form, this for support staff and certified. So both are being suggested in the same fashion, that we get stakeholder feedback and then some additional language in regards to COBRA. With regards to substitutes, basically this policy as it was prepared by Neola, it basically states that the district will have lists of subs. However, we actually contract for that in the majority of cases, and so these were revised in light of the fact that we use teachers on call to staff. And so it's a pretty straightforward policy update revision.
A motion to accept the policies as submitted.
Second.
I have a motion and second. Any discussion or questions on these policies? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We have substitute pay rates.
All right. In terms of the last year and a half, we've continued to have challenges with regards to sub coverage and getting folks to come in. Very recently, we saw that there has been an uptick, a very good uptick in terms of certified staff postings being filled. And so our teaching staff positions are getting subs. Last month we were at 99% filled. This month we're at 95. However, where we have lagged is with our support staff. And we're sitting at 67, 68% fill rate. And so what we were proposing to do to help with this is just to see if the board would be interested in moving retired Mukwonago staff to a daily rate of 175, regardless of whether it is a certified position that they're subbing for or a support staff. So we're looking for the board's direction in that.
So the Personnel Committee did approve that
Did approve a
recommendation?
positive recommendation.
And so
Right.
that recommendation for 175 rate for our retired teachers is in front of the board tonight. So we're looking for approval.
I'd like to make a motion, we approve that. I'll second.
I have a question. So we're having problem filling the para-professionals.
Correct.
So, but this is for if a retired teacher were to take any position.
That is
even
correct.
if it's certified or not. So we
Yes.
don't really know if it'll change that fill rate at all, because it's not directly affecting just our assistant, our paras. This is affecting all around.
That's correct. We're going to see if this is going to assist. This is a small step in taking a look at what we could do for support staff to entice folks to be able to assist in that regard. We do believe, based on conversations, that people are going to be more likely to take positions if they're compensated at a higher rate. The other benefit is that these are experienced folks, our folks, Mukwonago Area School District retirees. So again, it's an opening salvo to see what we can do to improve rates just across the board, but particularly with support staff.
Are we going to send out like a letter or email
Yes.
to all the retired? Okay.
Yep.
Jerry.
I was at the Personnel Committee, and I have some thoughts on that. First, like Erica said, I don't think that our retired teachers will be taking the positions that we are having a hard time finding. Second, I believe that our long-term sub rates are 175, and I know that we have many certified teachers that are teaching as subs. So I don't see any more quality or less quality in a certified teacher over a retired teacher, teachers who've been subbing in this district for years. So I don't think that this is, it's just a thing to say, but I think if we're going to really want to look into retention, that we should look into increasing our, maybe have a scale, but if you have if you're a certified teacher, here's one rate, and then, because I think there's other things we're doing, and this is just a, I won't say a Band-Aid, but I mean, I'm not against upping the prices, for the wages for them. However, I really don't think that the retired teachers are going to come and take the positions that we're having the hard time with, and we're at a 99% fill rate, so either we don't increase them at all because we have enough now, or that's just, I really wanted to go on record saying that, because I've listened for months about this, and I don't think this is either, it's either this isn't enough, or we should do it differently. Thank you.
We have been increasing our fill rate, and we're going by the conversations that Stephen said he had with the teachers, so we're just trying whatever, tool we have available at this time. So we'll see what happens. Jerry might be right, but.
Anybody else?
You could take a look in a year and see if it did increase, one, the pool of people that are coming to sub, and two, if it did, if we did see an increase in the number of teachers that are filling those support staff roles. And then Stephen could come back and report to you on whether it's not working, and then if it's not working, then you can certainly make a change.
That was the other point of the data that we didn't have, was how many of these retired teachers are actually coming back for a second, third, fourth engagement. So it's who's coming back, and is this enough to incent them more? So I agree. I have no idea if this is the answer, but we're still not at 100% fill rate. So if we're across the district, we're at 90%, there's still an opportunity.
When does it start?
That would be my suggestion is that this would not be backdated to the beginning of the year. This would be based on the board's decision tonight.
So
That's my
So it'd
recommendation.
start tomorrow, essentially?
Yes, sir.
So we get a couple months of data at the end of the year to see if it doesn't make a difference?
Yes.
That's reasonable.
Any other comments, questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. We have a snow day makeup plan.
Right, so we have a recommendation from the Personnel Committee, and a number of our board members were in attendance and weighed in on this as well. So we're well on our way to making sure that we meet the instructional hour requirement, but we also have a requirement that teachers work 187 contracted days. We had 3 snow days, and so there was some makeup time that they need to do. And so the committee recommended, and I have the motion at the end of the memo, to make up for missed 22-23 contracted work days due to the weather cancellations. Elementary teachers will record 16 hours of work done outside the contracted school day. Secondary teachers will record 8 hours of work done outside the contracted school day. I think
would like
that
to-
reflects what you guys said.
I would like to make a motion, we approve this plan.
I'll second that.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion or comments on this?
My only thought is, do we have to have in there that they have to record their hours? Could we just have them, could we just waive the days and let them be done in light of talking with Steven's plan with the relationships? I mean, we trust our teachers. We're not going to make them make up their days. We all know the time that they're putting in grading papers and writing tests, creating curriculum, doing everything outside of the school day. Why are we making them spend even more time now filling a document out that they worked extra when we all know they worked extra? That's just my thought.
I mean,
can
I
we
would think
just-
due to the fact that we have a contract for a certain number of hours, it would probably be safest for all involved to make sure that we have some sort of written record of satisfying that contract, would be my thought.
And I think that I agree with you, but I think I would be less inclined to set precedent of let's not document you not fulfilling your contract.
Okay. True.
Okay, so I do have a motion and a second on the table, however, to record those hours. Any other comments or questions about that? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. And last but not least, we have the 2023-24 Buildings and Grounds budget.
All right, so the Finance and Facilities Committee is recommending to the full board to consider the 23-24 Buildings and Grounds budget that we presented last Monday night. There's no increase to the budget that we proposed last year, and as we discussed our capital projects that we consider each year, we're going to defer those for the time being.
I'd like to make a motion that we move forward with this budget presented.
I will second. Any questions, discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. We will move into unfinished business and start with the superintendent report.
Yeah, just a few quick things. So first, our April schedule is a little different for our committee meetings. As Stephanie mentioned, the Student Learning Committee is on Thursday, April 6th. So that's a change from Monday. It's Thursday, April 6th at 6 p.m. Then Personnel, Finance, and Facilities and the full board are on our regular Mondays, the 10th, the 17th, and the 24th. Just a reminder that April, we will start our community focus group sessions. And so we're in the process of inviting the community members, parents, other people, other residents, April 12 and April 26. So those are Wednesdays in April. The first one is at Parkview Middle School, and that starts at 6 p.m. And I've shared these dates with you. It's just a reminder. And then May 10 and May 24. And then a number of you are going to be joining Tom and I for the WASB Day at the Capitol on Wednesday. Just a reminder that the registration starts at 8 a.m. at the Monona Terrace. Presentations start at 8:30. And we do have our visits with our legislators set. And so we'll be meeting with Senator Bradley at 1 p.m., Representative Reniger at 1:30, Representative Allen at 3:30, so there's a little gap in there. Maybe we can get in earlier. But Senator Kapenga, still waiting on that one, so more to follow. But I will send all this to you tomorrow in an email. And then attached to the superintendent report is a request from some board members that we share with you the per pupil expenditure for each of our schools. So we're sharing that with you tonight so you can start to take a look at it over the next couple of weeks. And it is a very in-depth report. Tom did a nice job putting that together, but there are a lot of complexities to that report and intricacies that we'll want to talk about at the next Finance and Facilities Committee meeting. But if you have questions or you want more information about that report, you can start asking Tom and I, and we'll make sure we bring that to you on the 17th, so we can have an in-depth discussion. And I'm going to turn the microphone over to Tom, so.
So did you guys get a chance to look under the superintendent's report? There's that graph there. So what I did is that I started with expenditures. And I know the original request, Carolyn, was to look at expenditures and revenues per student by school. The revenues were a little more difficult, so I just focused on the cost and the expenses first. I modeled this after a new federal report that we started about 4 years ago, so maybe it's not too new anymore, but we have 10 funds. A lot of those funds we exclude. Food service, for example. Those are paid for by students who have their fees, they make their deposits. That's not like an operating expenditure. So we're not considering Fund 50, and I have a caveat there at the bottom of the notes there to tell you what funds we are including and which ones we are excluding. I also, I excluded grants. So when we get money that, Christine talked about a lot of grants tonight, like a AODA grant or a school mental health grant, that money comes in, and then we spend that money as directed. So we just said, let's consider just our year-to-year annual operating budget that's created by our revenue limit, by any other year-after-year aids we get from the state government or from our taxpayers, and that how do we spend those dollars? How much are we investing in each school on a student-by-student basis? So there's some inclusions, some exclusions there. I did my best to really just break this down. If you take a look at the graph that shows just the numbers and not the bar charts there. We're looking at operating costs per student, equipment costs per student. So equipment would be anything that's $5,000 or more for a building. So that's our capital equipment. And sometimes those expenses can swing up or down. And then lastly, I made a bucket for one-time facility costs. You could see I ultimately excluded one-time facility costs per student. So if we look at Rolling Hills, for example, this year, because we just did a very expensive new parking lot there, that was $1,285 on a per student basis. And if we were to add that to the annual operating cost, it's going to say, wow, Rolling Hills is really, really expensive. Why does it cost so much? Those one-time projects should be excluded because the kids at Rolling Hills in 22, 23 aren't necessarily that much more expensive. It's just the timing of that. It needed to get done. That building's over 20 years old now. So if you look at the bar chart, the top one shows 4K, all of our elementary schools, along with our middle school and our high school. It excludes the one-time facility costs. And then that same information is shown below, but just for our elementary schools to maybe kind of have a little bit more apples-to-apples comparison. I will continue to work on the revenues, but I just wanted to share this with you as soon as I could, so this was the first opportunity. You guys have any questions about this information?
So for salaries, are you, Tricia Dahl, for example, splits between Big Bend and Clarendon, would you split her costs between both of those schools?
Yep, yep. So every employee has an account code, and if they work in 3 buildings, they have 3 account codes. And so we set those up at the beginning of every year so we can track our expenses as best we can. So, yeah.
Do you have special ed broken out in here, or so is there any restricted funds or capital equipment that goes for special ed that's included in this, or have you broken those out?
So special education is included for special education. Yeah, so that would, if there was any one-time chairlift that costed $20,000, yeah, that would be included. That would be included in the equipment costs per student. Generally speaking, those are pretty small nominal dollars. Most of the costs that we make, so for example, equipment, if we're buying new projectors for all of our high school rooms or whatever that might be, we're going to code that to Kelly Kubneski's budget, which is a technology department, so we just treat that as a district-wide cost. So yeah, those dollars are in here and are embedded in the district-wide costs.
You good? Okay, so board president report. As a board, we did agree, I believe last November, to engage in this WASB, Wisconsin Association of School Boards, online training modules. Conflict of interest was the training module that was to have been gone through for this month. I'm just gonna kind of start with the definition, and I'd love it if you have anything to share that stood out to you, that you didn't know, that you learned, or you have a question about. So the conflict of interest doctrine is developed through the common law, which is premised on the idea that a public officer, such as a school board member, owes an undivided duty to the public he or she serves. And as such, a public officer is not permitted to place himself or herself in a position that will subject him or her to conflicting duties or expose himself or herself to the temptation to act in any manner other than in the best interest of the public. Officers are to be free from any influence other than that which grows out of the obligations that he or she owes to the public. It was a lengthy presentation that does go through certain laws as well as the statutes and what those look like. So, for example, you cannot be an employee of the district and also be on the board. Pretty easy conflict of interest. You can be on the board and be married to someone that works for the school district, but you may not be allowed to vote on any item that has to do with that employee. Same for a child if they are a dependent of yours. However, if you are on the board and you have a child that works in the district but they are not a dependent, it is not considered a conflict of interest. We discussed earlier that Art can't sell a house or any business property on behalf of the district, and Vito cannot put any roofs on. That would be a conflict of interest as well.
Until next month, Art.
Were there anything that stood out to you? Does anybody have any notes or anything that they'd like to bring up for a discussion?
There's a scaled-down version. It's in our policies, all that stuff.
There is. We do have a policy on conflict of interest, yes, but there's a lot of great information defining things like immediate family and spouses and things like that. So was everybody able to get through this month's, well, this technically last month's module?
Riveting.
Riveting?
The one thing I thought was interesting is if you're the treasurer of the school board, you cannot also be the treasurer of a town board because there'd be a conflict of interest there. That was interesting.
Yeah, that was interesting, and I do want to point out, because Dale was running for the village board, it is perfectly kosher for someone to serve on the school board and on a town or a village board, and we've had school board members do that in the past. So Tim Agademus was on, at that time, the town of Vernon, and so was the town of Vernon board, and so was Rodell Singert at one time. So that's fine, but like Carolyn said, you can't be the treasurer here and the treasurer there.
I also found it interesting that you even have to be very cautious as a volunteer coach within a district as well. You cannot be a substitute teacher, you cannot be a part-time teacher, you cannot be a coach if you're a school board member, and even if you are a volunteer coach, you still would not be able to then vote on any sort of items having to do with that volunteer.
But board members can volunteer, I do.
They can volunteer. They can volunteer, they can be part of an organization unpaid.
You just get a background check first.
Yeah. Background check still has to happen.
Yes.
I did want to point out that if there ever is a time where you're not sure if you might be in violation of ethics, of some kind of ethics violation, that slide, I think it was slide 27, it said get an advisory opinion. So just contact us and we'll be in touch with Buell Vetter and they will provide an opinion for us, and we'll get everybody on the same page. And we can even go so far as, if we had to, contact the Ethics Commission to get an opinion, a written opinion from them. So if you ever have any concerns, by all means, just contact us and we'll help you out with that.
I also found it interesting that an employee can run for a school board position. That is not considered incompatible. They would have to resign said position before taking the oath of office. So if you ever did have somebody wanting to run in spring, like, well, you can't, and they win, that's not an issue until the oath of office is taken. Not that I am asking our staff.
There goes employee retention.
Yeah. And then, so that's it for this month. We will rivet you all next month with our next training. So legislation and correspondence recognition report.
Yeah, a few things. First, at the either personnel or finance and facilities, we're going to bring back a process to identify the next architectural firm and construction firm that we'll work with as we go through this process of a possible referendum. Vito, you had some questions about that at the Finance and Facilities Committee. So Tom and I met with Kurt Wiebelhaus today, and we have a timeline and a plan laid out. And when we do get to the process, we want to make sure this is transparent, and we do want board members to participate in interviewing the construction and architectural firms and participate in that selection process. And I think last time, Art, you were a part of that, and I could not remember if anyone else on this board, I know we've had a lot of turnover since that last time in 2015 when we selected our construction firm and architectural firm, but so Art was a part of that. And so board members will have a chance to participate. More to follow on that. Couple of recognition items. First of all, the MHS and Kiwanis Student of the Month was Marianne Romagna. And if you take a look at my report, you can see all of her accomplishments and her activities, and there are a lot of them. Like Diego and Madeline mentioned, our robotics team, 930, won the Chicago Regional, Midwest Regional, which is an outstanding accomplishment. They're going on to Houston. We will have them come visit the board, but probably not until May or June after the Nationals are over in April.
Are they in their new space yet? That we
Yes.
have?
Well,
Are-
yep, they've been
Is that
using
working
it.
out good?
I believe so. I don't want to speak for them, but since they won
ask.
the
That's
regional,
why they won,
I'm
I'm
assuming
sure.
Yeah.
Would be a great place to host a board meeting.
we could go there. Yes, we could go over there.
Tech team feel about that?
Parkview Middle School had an incredible honor. Their student government received the Spirit of Excellence Award, and that's an award given to one middle school in the entire state for achieving excellence in student leadership, sportsmanship, and service to their school and communities. Wanted to make sure that we gave a shout out to their advisors, Chelsea Pozolinsky and Ingrid Schultz, two really strong teachers at Parkview, and also the student government advisors. And we'll have them come visit us. I think they're going to present at the board in April. And then finally, next month when Dustin comes and does his strategic plan update, he's going to talk about this Department of Workforce Development grant, $35,000 grant that is going to buy equipment for our manufacturing program. And so he can share more about that, but we attached the press release. You might see that in the Freeman. And then we should point out that this is Art's last meeting. So
How many years, Art? 400?
Thank you for your many, many years of service. It's been 15 years, and I just want to thank all the boards that I've been a part of, especially all the students that I've had the pleasure of sitting next to. Kept me awake during Tom's presentations. So, thanks to all you guys.
Thanks, Art.
Well, thank you for all of your years. Okay, I am going to make a motion that we enter into executive session based on Wisconsin Statute 1985-1F, where we are considering financial, medical, social, or personal histories or disciplinary data of specific persons, preliminary consideration of specific personnel problems, or the investigations of charges against specific persons, except where these exceptions apply. These are things that we cannot speak about and talk about in public because they could have substantial adverse effect on the reputation of a person involved. So I have a motion. I make the motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
And a second. Jerry, could you roll call us into executive session, please?
Erica Connor?
Yes.
Joel Frederick?
Yes.
Dale Porter?
Yes.
Art Schneider?
Yes.
Peter Schwartz?
Yep.
Carolyn Simon?
Yes.
Craig Burtz?
Here.
Steve Waddles?
Yes.
Jerry Winchowski here.
Okay, do we need a 2-minute break?
Yes.
Okay. Yes, we learned that in one of our training modules, Vito.
These for a particular reason.
He didn't do it. He didn't do it.
Just lucky, I guess.
These are from Erica?
These are the Christmas present that you would have gotten at the Christmas party that we never had.
Oh, gotcha.
I had this whole
So are we-
cute thing planned out about.
Are we supposed to like
sleep.
put these on so we
So-
can sleep during the meeting?
No, not at the meetings. Afterwards, help you sleep. And I was gonna be like, don't leave sleep over bad.